Welcome to Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast. I'm Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis. And Nick, we have Molly Walker of the New York Post coming on in just a few minutes. But before she comes on, trade deadline was this past Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. The Rangers were rumored in everybody, including the kitchen sink. They ultimately got Jack Roslovic, they got Alex Wennberg, they got Chad Ruhwedel as well to fill out that blue line. A lot of rumors, but only the Rangers didn't trade Perreault. They didn't trade, Brennan Othmann or insert other prospect here. They got who they got, and this is the team that Chris Drury feels is going to win the Stanley Cup. Your overall thoughts from these past few days, Nick?
All right, so I'm going to give you my conspiracy first, and then we'll get to the mainstream. Number one, I think the Rangers were really good about getting their message out about how they felt about the market, because 5 different people from 5 different publications all said the exact same thing. Drury didn't overpay. He didn't give away anything expensive, and they still got useful pieces, which I agree with. I do agree. I like the ideas of the players. We talked about Roslovic at the end of January as somebody who could be a change of scenery, upside guy. Wennberg, not the flashiest, but I think he's an upgrade from Brodzinski. Whether or not Brodzinski draws in over Gaudreau, that'll be a conversation I'm sure a lot of people will have over the final 17 games of the regular season. I don't think there's a world where they're going to take Gaudreau out of the lineup, so I don't find arguing about it to be particularly fruitful. I do think they were serious about Guentzel. Everything I have heard leads me to believe they were pretty serious about trying to make that happen, but it didn't materialize. Whether you want to believe the Rangers weren't going to beat the Carolina offer because Kyle Dubas really wanted Michael Bunting, whether you believe it's the Rangers weren't ready to meet the price, whatever it is, I do think they were serious about that. And if they had pulled that trade off, everybody would have been really excited. Guentzel, 2-time 40-goal guy, really good hockey player. But the cost would have been significant, and that would have given people ammo to use against the general manager. I'm not saying the general manager did not trade for the star player because he was looking out for his own neck. I'm saying it is something you should consider in your evaluation of all of this, because there are 8 different versions of every story when it comes to the trade deadline. Everybody talks, and as Molly mentioned on when we recorded with her, Drury plays everything very close to the vest. The Rangers don't leak that much like they used to. You used to know the Rangers moves a month ahead of time. When Jeff Gorton or Glenn Sather was running the show, they would be in Larry's column a month before the move was going to come. The players they were interested in, what it was going to cost. The Rangers are pretty good about not leaking anymore. So you got to think about who was saying this stuff earlier in the week last week. It was Emily Kaplan, who does occasionally get things, but a lot of this stuff I think is mention Rangers engagement. Mention Rangers engagement.
By the way, and this is, I guess, for engagement, but I have not created a doppelganger of myself. I know it says my name under where it should say where it should say your name, but maybe you've gotten a name change, Nick. I don't know. That's maybe we should.
That's technology, which will be a recurring theme if you're watching this after the fact with our recording with Molly, where technical difficulties did arise. We didn't get to ask if it was Spectrum or Fios' fault. Oversight on our part.
Well,
go ahead,
yeah.
Andrew.
That's when brands get involved and they'll be mad at us and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I mean the thing about the first line right winger, and I asked Molly this in the beginning of our conversation. They didn't get Guentzel. They didn't get Buchnevich. Now, was Buchnevich ever even remotely going to be moved, or was it because of clickbait and farming engagements, all these types of things? We'll never know the answer to these because the insiders will never let us know. But I think there's more than one correct answer to this, where the Rangers didn't get their first line right winger. And that in and of itself is not ideal. The Rangers would be better right now with Jake Guentzel than with whoever they ultimately stick on that first line right winger spot. Now, if that was even a remote possibility without trading Perreault, Othmann, 17 first-round picks, and all these things, I don't know the answer to that. What we do know is that Drury was talking to Dubas, pretty considerably about
he got
Guentzel.
Chad Ruhwedel.
Yeah, he got Chad Ruhwedel as a consolation prize. And by the way, Chad Ruhwedel is good. Like he in sheltered bottom 6 minutes, he provides exactly what you need him to do. So he's a positive addition to the blue line when he needs to play. I also think, the argument that because they didn't get one of those top guys, yeah, Roslovic is good. Roslovic is a good player. He's going to make the Rangers better. Alex Wenberg is a player that is going to make the Rangers better. But the Rangers also knew that they had that first line right winger spot open the entire season. They tried Jimmy Vesey there. They tried Blake Wheeler there. We joked about it with Molly a few minutes ago. They tried me. They tried you. They've tried Molly. They've tried everybody at that first line right winger spot.
Larry.
Maybe they should have tried Larry. And maybe he'll loosen up on Kravtsov because he keeps bringing him up in his columns. But I joke obviously, but like they didn't necessarily fill that hole yet because there's still a debate of who is going to be the first line right winger, and that should tell you how the Rangers approach this deadline and how they feel about it, because they knew that this was their biggest hole. Yes, they obviously with Chytil out for the season, that was going to be a hole, and they addressed that hole pretty well. They also knew that top line spot had a problem, and the fact that after the deadline, the storyline or the understanding is they still don't know who is going to fit there, that I feel like is still an issue.
Okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with you. I do think I see the vision with Roslovic. I understand exactly what they see in him. They think that a change of scenery, and I touched about this briefly over the weekend, he's a career like 11% shooter. He's shooting like 7%. He was on a god-awful hockey team, so it's hard to take a lot of his underlying results as like a direct, this is how he plays. But the reason I was encouraged about Roslovic and why I considered him in the first place was his transition stuff. That is something that 93 and 20 have really struggled with at times, where if they can't get into the offensive zone cleanly with speed and with control of the puck, they'll dump it in and they won't go get it because neither of them are particularly adept forecheckers. They're not great along the boards individually, which is frustrating because, we all know Chris Kreider's jacked as all hell and would put any of us to shame with no shirt on, but he doesn't use it for whatever reason. He's not out leveraging people with his body. So having somebody who is fast in a straight line, who's on the bigger side, who can carry the puck, will make more space for them. I don't know if Roslovic is going to have the Frankie Vetrano 12 goals in 15 games in him. I don't think he probably will, but he's better than what they had. He deepens the lineup, and ultimately the big picture, and there is another point on this I want to get to in a few minutes, which we'll touch on, but the bigger picture, the thing Andrew and I have hammered for a month now, it ultimately comes down to the core of this team. When you win a Stanley Cup, it is because 3 or 4 of your best players on your team are over a point per game. Your goalie is at least .915 save, and your special teams are killing it. Wenberg and Roslovic are better than the players they had in those spots. This deepens the lineup. It gives them more versatility. That we saw it at the end of the game the other day. Well, not the end of the game, but at one point in the game the other day where they were rolling Wenberg, Vesey, and Gaudreau as more of a shutdown defense group. And you have more options. You have more versatility. This opens more paths. We talk a lot about contingencies. What do you do if something's not working? The Rangers' margin for error got a little bit bigger. Not huge, but they have a little bit more room now because the drop off from your first line to your second line, your third line to your fourth line, it got smaller. Not that much smaller, but they have a little more room. Their lineup is a little bit deeper, and they have some options. They can play around a little bit with the lineup. They've got 17 games. They still got to figure out what Rempe is going to be, and I know we'll touch on that at some point as well, but they have options. They have more paths. That is ultimately good. No home runs, solid double.
Yeah, and I said this a minute ago. We said this on Twitter when these trades happened. Like the trades in and of themselves, I think Drury did well in. He didn't trade everything in the kitchen sink. He didn't trade the key to the city to get these guys. And these are guys that are going to make this team better. It's a deeper team. He didn't acquire somebody like Pat Maroon, who essentially at this stage of his career is not doing a whole lot.
He's just vibes.
Yeah, he didn't get a vibes per 60 player. And that in and of itself is a big plus. The 3 players that Chris Drury traded for, he didn't trade 7 first-round picks to get. He didn't trade for somebody that cannot physically help the Rangers play better hockey on the ice when he is out there on the ice, right? Like, these are guys that are fundamentally going to make the Rangers deeper and better at their core. So he did a good job in these 3 deals. The question that we have to ask ourselves is, and we talk about it on Twitter. We're going to talk about it with Molly in a few minutes from now. You don't get a lot of opportunities at the Stanley Cup. You really don't. A lot of teams, like, they pretend that they do, and in hockey, I guess you have more of a chance because hockey is a stupid, silly, luck-based sport where you get a 6-week stretch where everything goes your way and then you just win. Sometimes that happens in hockey. Happens more in hockey than in any other sport in North America. But you don't get a lot of opportunities to really, truly go for it. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, yes, Othmann is a fantastic prospect. Perreault is a sensational prospect. Like, there's a lot of pieces in the cupboards for the Rangers right now. They still have their first round pick this year. Whether or not that has anything to do with the Vegas sphere or not is above my pay grade, let's say. But these are guys that the Rangers have, and these are assets the Rangers have. Would they have been better off in going all in and going for the Stanley Cup here? Maybe they wait for next year. I don't know. But in the trades that Drury did do, I think he did well.
Yeah, I agree with you. 2 things I want to push back on and build off of. Number 1, the key to winning the Stanley Cup is making the playoffs every single year. I think that's the foundational principle. You got to look at the recent history of the league. Colorado consistently in the playoffs over and over again. Vegas has been in the playoffs every single year but one. Tampa Bay made the playoffs pretty consistently for a decade. Washington, the Blues, same thing. Pittsburgh, same thing. Chicago, LA. I can go on and on. I think it's not so much going all in. It's having things line up for you. And this is the big talking point I saw a lot of people saying in regards to the team of 2 years ago versus last year. The teams that add the stars at the deadline don't typically do well. I think that's not the right takeaway. I think the right takeaway is the teams that all win the Stanley Cup, they don't need to add a star because they already have the team they need. I went and did a small thread about this where you look at Tampa Bay, where Point and Kucherov were both they were both over a point per game over both playoff runs. They won the Stanley Cup. Colorado had 4 guys over a point per game on their way to a Stanley Cup. Vegas had 4 guys over a point per game. Those teams didn't need to add a Jake Gensel because they already had, a Jack Eichel, a Mark Stone, a Kucherov. And that's really been the Rangers' conundrum here for the last couple of years. Zibanejad, Kreider, Fox, Panarin, Shesterkin, that's a good group. But the bar of a Stanley Cup is great. If this group can be great, it's not impossible. It's just you got to find the way. And we've talked about this all season. The gap between great and good, it's not that big. But what can the Rangers do to bridge that?
Well, listen, and we talked about this with Molly here a little bit earlier on the show, but a lot of this has to do with the people that are already here. We've been talking about it for months now. We talked about it with Molly, and it's just one of those situations where the top guys that have been here are the guys that are the ones that need to step up here and deliver. Like, Patrick Kane's not coming through those doors to magically all of a sudden fix this team, fix the offense or score 100 points in 10 games and waltz the Stanley. These things aren't happening. It is up to the guys that are currently in the locker room. Yeah, the additions are great and they're going to make this team better, but the stars that are here, the stars that are making the most money, the ones that are touching the puck the most, the ones that are being trusted by Peter Laviolette and the coaching staff to go out there and deliver offense, these are the guys that need to step up for 2 months and bring the Stanley Cup to the Rangers. Roslovic is great, but he's not going to score 30 goals in 16 consecutive Rangers wins and they just cruise their way to that's not happening. You have to rely on everybody involved, but the vast majority of the pressure is on the guys that have been here, that have been in the conference finals with the Rangers, that have been to that first round defeat against the Devils last year. It's up to these guys at the end of the day to show up and deliver. And as much as Roslovic and Wennberg and Rubido are going to help, the brunt of everything falls on the Stars that are currently here.
So the one last point on this before we move on. I just went and pulled it up. When the Rangers went to the conference final 2 years ago, they had 2 players who were over a point per game in that run. That was Zibanejad and Fox. Kreider had 16 and 20. Panarin had 16 and 20. Kopp had 14 and 20. Again, good. The bar is great. And for the Rangers to get to that next tier, I don't know if this current group is capable of doing that for, a month and a half, the way they're currently constructed. The possibility is there. And that's why, in particular, and I said this to you before we started recording, this group has significantly better energy around it than last year's team.
Oh, yeah.
For a variety of reasons. And we've talked a lot about how things haven't really come together. Let me lay this out for you. Number one, the first line has not been great at 5-on-5 since November. Their third line has featured an AHL center since December. They have lost 2 top 9 forwards. They have 1 defensive pair that is above 50% in all the key metrics. Their starting goalie was under a 900 save percentage the second week of February, and they have the 4th best record in the entire league. At some point, Mika Zibanejad is going to wake up. At some point, Chris Kreider is going to wake up.
I just want to stop talking about him. Please.
At some point, it's going to happen. They're just sheer probabilities. And this is the argument why I think it does happen. Zibanejad, I want to say, is 31. Zibanejad, somewhere in that range. He's 30, and he will be 31 by the end of April. He's 31. I don't think Mika Zibanejad at 31 is cooked. Okay. I don't think he's washed. I don't think this is the end of his age. This is the start of his age related decline. He is shooting about 2-3% off of his career average. That's probably, another 2 or 3 goals somewhere in there. I think he's been a little bit cold on the power play as well. There's probably another couple goals in there as well, but you get them going at the right time and you see it. We've seen Zibanejad have the ability to go nuclear hot for a week. We all remember that first week of March in 2020 where he had 11 goals in 6 games, where he genuinely looked like one of the
5-goal game.
Yeah, he looked like one of the 5 best players. He looked like one of the 10 best players in the entire world. The capability of being a dominating force is in there. I think, and this is not based in statistics or anything. This is my gut feeling. I genuinely feel that he has to erupt at some point. Otherwise, we can have the conversation about maybe he isn't the player we thought he was, or maybe this is just who he is now. I genuinely think there has to be one of those eruptions. I forget what it was in the month of March, something ridiculous point spread, where I want to say it's 108 points in 105 games in the month of March for his entire career. He is capable of being a really special player. It's just a matter of it coming together. 132 points in 159 games, but that also includes games with the Senators. So he is capable of being great. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I feel like it's going to happen at some point.
This is the most frustrating thing about the Zibanejad discourse. And again, I just wish he'd start scoring at 5-on-5.
Well, we can stop talking about it. We can just move on. We can talk about Rempe if you want.
Well, no, because it's one of the biggest storylines heading into the playoffs is that this man has gotten 30 games without scoring a 5-on-5 goal, and I wish he would score so that we could talk about him, in a different angle. But the most frustrating thing about Zibanejad is that he has all of the talent in the world, and we see it in situations where he doesn't necessarily need it. Like in the shootout, the other day, I forget who they played, but that shootout goal where he just absolutely ripped a shot and it went in. His shot is incredible. We all know his passing is great. He can skate really fast when he wants.
Well, we diagnosed this, Andrew. He doesn't have the space, and that's why Roslovic is going to help.
Hopefully.
In theory, they did what they could based on the market around them to improve the lineup as currently constructed. Whether or not you believe the lineup is good enough, that's an entirely different conversation. Yeah. But as far as the team itself, the capability is there. One thing I would like to talk about, and we did touch on this later, but I want to see Rempe getting more than 7 minutes a game. He got 11 on Saturday night. I
Mhm.
know that game was out of hand. I know the Blues were more or less dead. But if he's going to be on the playoff roster, he's got to play. We can't play with 11 forwards. You know, I know we all joke about the Stu Bickle 7-minute triple overtime game. That was funny and all, but that was part of the reason those John Tortorella Rangers teams had issues. They only had 8 or 9 forwards the coach trusted. And the reason I will pound the table for this, Rempe has been solid to actually good in his underlyings. The capability, and that's with Gaudreau. You know, it's not like Gaudreau is doing all the work and he's just out there. Rempe, Gaudreau, Vesey is doing a good job at 5-on-5. We got to trick that. I'm trying to think of the word tick. There we go. We got to tick those minutes up gradually. I understand not wanting to go right to 11, 12 minutes, but we can't be playing one forward 6 minutes a game and double shifting Vesey. That's not fair to him. And ultimately, it's hard to win that way. I need to see, and we're going to get a good look tonight because the Devils are going to dress McDermott solely with the intent of getting their pound of flesh. We're going to see if Rempe actually fights, whether or not that actually happens. But we have to see something in the lines of, I need the coach. I need to know Laviolette trusts him. That's the biggest thing. If he goes up to 10, 11 minutes a game, he can be in the lineup. If he's 10, 11 minutes a game, he can be in the playoff lineup. If he's under 10 minutes, I don't think that's feasible.
The thing about Matt Rempe, and we talked about it with Molly, who we'll hear from her in a couple of minutes here. We got just a couple of minutes here, but Matt Rempe, in the few minutes that he's actually out on the ice, he's not just there. Like, he is positively contributing to the team on both ends of the ice, whether it be offensively, where he literally parks himself in front of the goaltender, and this man, being a giant that he is, whatever goaltender he's in front of, cannot see within 8 miles of above or behind or left to right or whatever of where he is, because he's that big of a human being. He's attacking the net. He is doing positive things for this team offensively and defensively as well. When he's retrieving pucks, the other team, and you'll notice when he's out there on the ice, not only are the fans cheering for him, but the other players for the other team are terrified of going anywhere near this guy. He's going into the boards. He's going into the corners, getting the dirty areas, and players are afraid of battling with this guy. Like, he is a positive addition to the team on both aspects, of the game. It's just a matter of, okay, well, he's shown he can do it in 7-minute spurts, 8-minute spurts, 10-minute spurts. We need to now see him do it in double-digit minutes for the rest of the season. If he can do that, like you said, he's has to be playoff bound for sure. And the counterpoint is okay, well, if you don't trust him enough, well then, one, why are you still playing him besides the fact that people like him? And two, who are you going to trust more over Rempe? And if you do trust somebody more than Rempe right now, then why aren't you playing them?
Rempe's impacts are of all of the, the face puncher class that is in the league, he is not a net negative like pretty much all the rest of them are. When you go and look at the Ryan Reeves of the world, the Matthew Olivers of the Oliviers of the world, those types of players, the Pat Maroons now, not Pat Maroon 3 years ago, the guys who are really only in the lineup for vibes and to fight, they are genuinely ineffective at hockey. Rempe, when he's played, looks like he has a clue. That is more than you can say for a lot of the guys the Rangers have auditioned on the fourth line over the years. And building off of this is something that the Rangers can feel good about because A, he's cheap. B, he's a homegrown guy. C, they very, very much, and we talk a lot about trying to sift through what matters, what's valuable, what isn't. You can't deny that the Rempe vibes matter for the guys in that room. And that's ultimately part of why that's why he stayed up and not Edstrom. I would argue that and it's not like Edstrom was bad. It's just Rempe genuinely, I don't want to say the team looks at him like, their child, but effectively they all look at him like their son, and it sounds silly to say about another grown adult with a bunch of other grown adults, but They're giving him the hat for playing 4 minutes a game and touching the puck 3 times. Like, they are genuinely excited that this kid is here. He's having fun. Something that someone pointed out to me the other day. Rempe, when he got called up, had 5,500 followers on Instagram. He's up to 60,000 followers in a month. He is very clearly enjoying this. And tonight against the Devils, we're going to see, and we're going to get a really good idea if he's a guy or not, because the best thing he could do is just dare McDermott to punch him and to draw a penalty. Dare the other guy to fight him and don't engage with him. You are not on that guy's level, Matt. You are a better hockey player than him. He is trying to fight you because he needs to feel important. You are good at hockey. Don't let a schmuck who only is valuable punching people determine your worth. You know, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. If they keep winning and the vibes are good, he deserves to stay. He does. He genuinely deserves to stay in the lineup.
And also, you know, just because people challenge you to fights doesn't mean you have to accept them. Like, a lot of the people that are challenging him to fights are challenging him to fights because they can't play hockey. Matt Rempe has shown that he can play hockey. Yeah, I mean, shelter minutes, you can argue about that, whatever. But it's not like he has no skill, because clearly he has some skill with the puck. He's not the fastest skater in the world because he's 11 feet tall, but like, he's not the slowest skater either, and he's somebody that has he has hockey IQ. He understands, you know, to a certain extent where to be with the puck and you know, and where to go if he doesn't have it, et cetera, et cetera. Taking yourself off the ice for at least 5 minutes because there's some guy that should be in the minors challenging you to fights is silly. I understand it's Rangers Devils. I get people want to see the fights. I get it. It's rivalry. I get it, but
Devils are a dead body. Poke them with the stick and beat the shit out of them tonight.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like this, the Devils don't deserve your time right now. The Devils are dead. The Devils sold. They punted the season away. The Devils are dead. There's no, like, you fighting them only makes them feel better about themselves. It doesn't help you. You're one of the best teams in the league en route to hopefully, you know, potentially and hopefully win a Stanley Cup. These guys just sold at the deadline. They're going nowhere. You fighting their worst player is achieving nothing. Get McDermott to get himself an instigator penalty, go in the power play and score. That's it. That's what Matt Rempe needs to do tonight against the Devils. And against the Islanders and the Rangers play 5 games in 7 days. Like this,
schedule makers were not
This is crazy. Like this is a nuts.
And they don't even get 24 hours between the Saturday and Sunday game because it's 3:00 Saturday and then matinee Sunday. I mean,
right.
I understand you want to get the Rangers on national television on Saturday, ABC. That's a good thing, but you couldn't have threw them a solid on St. Patrick's Day. I understand they don't want the entire tri-state area showing up to Madison Square Garden at 7 p.m. on St. Patrick's Day with the blood alcohol of 0.09, but you got to throw them a bone somewhere in the schedule. They played 2 games in a week, and then they've got 5 in 8 days, which is just seems a little unfair. Quick's going to go tonight, which I find a little bit interesting, but that's probably being that they're going to have a heavy workload this week. They're going to have to lean on him a little more. Last thing before we get out of here, because we do have another 30 minutes of this episode if you're watching this not live. So the last thing I want to touch on, and we did touch on this with Molly, I really am really excited that we're going to get 2 weeks of K'Andre Miller playing with somebody that's not Trouba.
Yes.
Because this is what we've been clamoring for.
Mm-hmm.
Because worst case, if this doesn't work, you can go back to what you already had. You can tinker around. You know, it was good to see they did this 2 weeks ago. They ultimately blew the lead and had to come back and win in overtime. But tinker, you know, you've got a little bit of breathing room. I like what I saw from Miller and Schneider on Friday. I think they complement each other reasonably well. I think Schneider has taken some steps this year. I won't say he's exactly where I'd like him to be, especially as far as his puck skills, but his impacts are a lot better. He's playing with a competent defensive partner in Gustafsson, which has helped for all of their warts. And I want to do a statistical dive on Schneider as well, but as far as drawing in, we also don't know if Fox is going to play tonight. He's a game time decision. Ruido might draw in, which might reconfigure everything.
Sure.
But in a vacuum, at least 2 weeks, if not more, we still don't know exactly what Trouba has. They just said lower body, multiple weeks, which could be anything ranging from, you know, like a broken toe to like his leg has been amputated. So we'll find out. But we're going to get a look at what Miller looks like with a partner who complements his skill set a little more. And I'm very excited to see what that looks like.
I agree. I thought they had a great game against the Blues, although the Blues looked like they didn't want to be there and kind of just...
Except for Booch. Booch was the only guy moving his ass
Well,
out
of
there.
course. I mean, coming back to Madison Square Garden, Pavel Buchnevich is always going to do that. I wish he would do it in a Rangers jersey, but that's just that will be the hill that I personally die on. But the Blues didn't want to be there. They especially after the third goal the Rangers scored, they really looked like they didn't want to be there. They wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. So it's tough to the Rangers played a fantastic game, but some of it for sure is the Blues wanted to go out to dinner afterwards. Like they really didn't want to. They didn't give 100%, let's say, in that game. So both of those things are true. So they had a good game, but it's tough to glean, how good they could possibly be. I'm excited to see how they play tonight and this week. 5 games in 7 days or 8 days or whatever it is going to be really tough. It's going to be difficult. I want to see how these new pairings play under duress of the schedule. It will be interesting to see how they fight back against it. Trouba's not coming back for a couple more weeks. Yeah, Ruhwedel is going to draw in potentially tonight for Fox. We'll see. I would like to see Ruhwedel get a couple of games this week anyway. Just to be, again, 5 games in 7 days. Might as well play him just to see how he fits, how he plays with the team, get him acclimated, et cetera, et cetera. You might as well do it now than game 6 of the playoffs, when you might need him. You'd rather just do it now. So I'm interested to see how they play, and if this kind of play, 1, is sustainable, and 2, if it is sustainable, will Laviolette keep the pairings when Trouba comes back? Because that's if he does it, that might be a whole other topic of conversation.
They play the Devils tonight, Carolina tomorrow, which that's a brutal back-to-back. The Devils look dead, but the Devils always get up for the Rangers even when they're bad. We talked about that with the Islanders, who they also play this week. Tampa Bay on Thursday. Tampa Bay's kind of had a rough go of it of late.
Islanders have won, 6 in a row now? 6
or 7 in a row. The Islanders are kind of putting it together. They're taking advantage of the vacuum that's kind of formed in the Metro, especially where the Flyers, they're a nice story, but I don't know if anybody really expected them to sustain. And that's not a knock on the Flyers. It's just, it's hard to play the way they've played for 82 games, and a fall off was probably somewhat to be expected, but put a nail in the coffin of the Penguins. I know the Flames did it last week, but Saturday is a real opportunity to do the parties over grandpa to Sidney Crosby and the Penguins. Put them in a body bag, national television. Every single commercial break, Sean McDonough's going to bring up not Tristan Jarry, Louis Domingue. They're going to bring up the spicy pork. Put a nail in the Penguins' coffin, never to be heard from again. And then Sunday, you're going to play on less than 24 hours rest against a division rival that's surging, that you really could see in the first round of the playoffs if things shake out a certain way. The Islanders will be up for that game.
Yeah.
I hope the Rangers are up for before 5 minutes to go in the game. That's not to say the Rangers can't come from behind, but it's a lot harder.
It would be nicer if they didn't have to do that, is the moral of the story.
The Islanders are playing really well. I've watched quite a bit of them over the last 2 weeks. I went to the game against the Bruins. I watched the Sharks game. I watched the Blues game. They are a lot smoother in transition. The defense has been quite a bit better. Unironically, since Scott Mayfield got hurt, their defense has been a lot better, which not a knock on the guy, but the team does look a lot better without him in the lineup. Something Ranger fans are probably going to be saying in 2 weeks when we see Trouba come back in and the defense takes a noticeable dip. But I digress. We're going to learn a lot. The Rangers tweeted the schedule this morning, and I said it's going to put some hair on your chest. It is. This is going to be a stressful week. 5 games in 8 days is a lot.
It is. It's going to be really. That's a lot of hockey. That's a lot of hockey. But again, this is the time for Ruhwedel to come in. Maybe get Edstrom back for a game or two if somebody's sore or whatever. These games matter a lot for the Rangers, sure. They matter more for teams like the Islanders and Hurricanes and stuff like that. But this is now your time to prepare, get the good habits going, and ride off in the playoffs. Go on a high note. Go all systems go with your your passes are crisp, your strides are crisp, everything is on 100% because it's if you come in broken and battered and everything is disjointed and you're heading into game one of the playoffs, like that's tough to come back from. So hopefully, good habits, keep it rolling.
All right. If you're watching live, this is where we're going to end today's episode. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review if you could be so kind on the podcast platforms. Drop the video a like on YouTube if you're watching there. We'll probably drop something at some point before next Monday, but if not, we'll see you guys then.